and we have Miss Jessica Mogren.
Alright, so my name is Jessica Mogren, and today I'm going to talk to you about understanding misconceptions of endangered species. So first, just to get us started, I'm going to show you guys a bunch of pictures of species that are endangered, and I'd like you to raise your hand whenever you see one that you either recognize or you've heard of, or maybe you've seen in the zoo or something like that, and then just keep them up until all the pictures are up. So we have the Amur leopard, the Arctic fox, the black spider monkey, blue whale, brown bear, Galapagos penguin, African wild dog, Ganges river dolphin, and the green turtle. So as you can see, most of you have either seen or heard about an endangered species, so this is a big issue that's been going on here recently. So for the overview today, we're going to discuss causes of endangerment to animals. Then we're going to talk about the loss of habitat, particularly in the deforestation area, disease, and climate change. So there are three main things that are causing endangerment to animals right now, and those are loss of habitat, disease, and climate change. So a loss of habitat can be anything that either destroys or jeopardizes the habitat of a specific species, and those can include things such as invasive species, deforestation, habitat degradation, human encroachment, and overexploitation of plants. Now, habitat degradation can actually be broken up into further subgroups containing things like chemical spills, fires, natural disasters, and actually in some raptor species, they're having issues with the wind turbines right now as they keep running into them. So we're going to focus on deforestation for a few minutes. Most extinctions in forest species occur in the species that can only inhabit forests, like they can't live anywhere other than forests. And one place where this has really been a major issue recently is in Singapore. Since 1819, 95% of the original forests have been completely wiped out, whether this has to do with harvesting for timber or just trying to clear it out so they can have more space for people to live. And of course this causes major declines in wildlife and plant populations that can only live in the forest area, and it's actually caused a 73% loss of species. And then just to give you some more numbers on that, it's lost 28% of its biodiversity, 25% of the vascular plants that used to live in the area, 53% of freshwater species, 67% of bird species, and 59% of mammal species. And this leaves only 25% of the entire area of Singapore as forested area. And that 25% has to provide habitat for the remaining 72% of the biodiversity of the country. And so as you can imagine, that's a lot of animals trying to cram into one little area. And then just to make this a little bit more realistic to you guys, Singapore is only 277 square miles total. And so if you cut that down to 25%, that leaves 69 square miles of forested area. And I'm sure most of you have been to the Richmond area before. Richmond itself is only 62 square miles. So the total forest area of Singapore is only slightly larger than Richmond. Now I'm going to show you guys a short video about a disease called chytrid, which has been infecting many amphibian species down in South America and worldwide.
We have a group of vertebrates, the amphibians, that evolved 360 million years ago. They've been incredibly successful. They've made it through mass extinction events better than many other vertebrates. I'm thinking in particular of things like dinosaurs. Amphibians today are really in bad shape. I mean, just in the last couple of decades, we've lost hundreds of species. probably extinct, and we're talking about 40% of the species that are known are probably going to disappear in my lifetime. The damage is substantial. It's more than substantial. It's catastrophic.
One of the causes of worldwide amphibian decline is a fungus called chytrid, or BD.
So these are these microscopic fungi that live in water. It infects the skin of amphibians, so it's a skin disease. And for amphibians, unlike mammals and other vertebrates, the skin is incredibly important as an organ. They breathe through their skin. Many amphibians don't even have lungs. They breathe right through their skin. And they can breathe underwater. They can breathe on land. They exchange electrolytes through their skin. So their skin is a really important organ. And what this fungus does is it basically disrupts that organ completely. It spreads over the entire skin of the animal and causes complete skin dysfunction, which eventually leads to mortality.
It's
So one of the most devastating things about chytrid is we have no idea where it started, and we have not found a cure for it yet. The only thing we do know is that it travels through water, and then it infects the skin of the amphibian, which is where all of its gas exchange and breathing happens, and so it basically suffocates the animal. One of the most deadly things about the disease is that in the time it takes us to recognize that a disease is actually occurring in a species of animals, and then the time it takes to find a cure for it, by the time all of that's done, most of the species that have been affected by this are either too far gone or dead already. So now we're going to talk about climate change, particularly global warming. And this has been a very large problem in cold water fish species, such as the Salmonidae family, which include brown trout and rainbow trout. So fish are ectothermic and plaktheothermic. So ectothermic just means that they have no way of internally regulating their body temperature. And when we think about ectothermic species, we normally think about reptiles that go out and lay on a sunny rock to try and raise their body temperature. However, fish are also plaktheothermic, which means that they don't actively try and regulate their body temperature, so you're not going to find them basking in warmer waters. They're just going to adapt their metabolism to the water temperature that's around them. And they normally prefer water temperatures around 22 degrees Celsius. And unfortunately, an increase in water temperature of just 5 degrees could cause mass extinctions and could actually cause 68% loss of habitat for these cold water species. And this could have very large effects on ecosystems, because if the fish can't survive in these areas, they're going to try and move further upstream into the higher elevations and stuff like that. And when that happens, the lakes and ponds turn into little creeks and streams, so they don't have as much variety in habitat, and they don't have as much room to inhabit all of the population. And when you move further upstream, it's going to cause, it can cause geographic isolation from the other populations of fish, and this can lead to a much lower genetic diversity. And this is going to cause major issues, especially if the species that can no longer breed in these areas start to go extinct. And those species could be actual keystone species, so it means a lot of species rely on them for their particular habitat. So if those species go extinct, we're going to see declines in the rest of the populations that normally reside in those habitats. And currently on the World Wildlife Fund endangered species list, there are 99 species on that, and that's just as many as we know, and we're finding more and more every day, and we're actually discovering new species each day that we didn't even know existed that are making this list. So we discussed causes of animal endangerment that can include habitat loss, disease, and climate change. We discussed a little bit about deforestation and the 95% loss of forests in Singapore and how that has caused a 28% loss in their biodiversity. We discussed the chytrid fungus, which is causing major declines in amphibian species and can possibly lead to a 40% species loss in our lifetimes. And then we discussed climate change in cold water fish and how this can lead to a rapid decline of their habitat up to 68%.